Hello my beginner buddies out there. Today I'm going to give you a lesson that you can probably find in 10,000 places on the internet, but I'm going to show you how to do it without wanting to. And this is how you play your first 5 chords on guitar without doing that. So before we start here, I do want to talk to you about something I never see mentioned in these first lessons, and that is a little thing called action. And no, I don't mean the latest Marvel movie. So what we're talking about here is the distance of the strings to the fretboard, and when you have really high action, it can be hard to press the strings down, and when you're first learning, this can be really frustrating. It feels like it takes way too much strength than it would if you played a better setup guitar. So when you have something really inexpensive with high action, it can discourage you from learning the guitar. And so hopefully you have something that's set up pretty well and is not going to make you not want to play. Our first chord is the easiest one to play, and it's called E minor. It's the easiest because you only need to hold down 2 notes and you get to strum all the strings, so you don't have to be specific with your strumming hand. First I'll show you from this view that we're doing now, and then I'll show you from your own point of view when looking down at the guitar. We start with the 2nd fret. You count your frets 1, 2, 3, 4 all the way up on the 5th string, and strings are counted from the skinniest 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you're going to play the 2nd fret of the 5th string, and you're going to use your 2nd finger. The fingers are. So you take your 2nd finger and you hold it down there. Try to use your fingertip as much as possible. And then right underneath that, you're going to take your 3rd finger, and that'll be the 4th string on the 2nd fret. And when you strum all of it together, you have a nice E minor chord. Now I know when you're doing this, you might be tempted to do different fingers on it, maybe your 1st and your 2nd instead of 2nd and 3rd, but I'm giving you the number of fingers to use, or the number on the fingers, which ones to use for fretting for specific reasons that you're going to use later. So please follow along with that to make your journey easier as you go on. Now as far as doing it without frustration, this is going to be the thing we do with all of the chords here, and that is that you don't have to learn to play both of the notes at the same time. You will eventually, but if at first you just want to hold down the one string, the first one I showed you, the 5th string on the 2nd fret, and not try to get the other one down at all yet, it's perfectly fine to do that and just strum that a few times. It may not sound right like the chord, but you're just getting used to doing one finger at a time, and eventually add the other one when you're comfortable. And we're going to do this process with each one of the chords as we go. Now let me show you what it looks like from the view looking down at the guitar. Now we move on to our 2nd chord, G major, but before we do, I want to point out this little thing in the corner over here. I do videos for all different levels of players here, as well as stuff on gear, and so if you're just starting out, I have a ton of useful videos just for beginners in that playlist. I'll do the YouTube thingy and link it up here so you can come back and check out that playlist later if you want to. Now this G chord is going to be a little bit more difficult. You still get to strum all the strings, but it's a bit harder to do with your left hand. Also, I'm going to show you a slightly simplified version of it that I think is better when you're first starting out. We're going to start with the 3rd finger on the 3rd fret of the 6th string, and it can be difficult to just get your fingertip on it. You end up kind of like resting over the next string, the 5th string, and you get that dead sound, but that's going to be okay because the version of it we're playing, the simplified version, actually you're supposed to do that. The other finger you're going to use, and this is going to be hard at first, is your pinky, your 4th finger, on the same fret, 3rd fret, all the way over here on the 1st string, so you're covering the entire length of the fretboard, and you go down for a G major chord. And again, do one at a time if you have to. Even though it's not the chord, just do this one. Maybe work on just getting the pinky. Sounds awful when you don't play the correct chord, but get each one separately so you don't get totally frustrated, and then learn to put them both down. And if you hear me strum, or if you hear me pick one note at a time, notice that the one note is dead, and that's okay. That one's dead because of the version of the G chord that we're playing for a beginner here. Let's take a look at how that looks from your own view on the guitar. Okay, now you have 2 of the 5 chords down, and eventually you'll want to play a switch from one to the other. And at the end of this video, I will post a link to a great trick for learning to do that without getting stuck. Let's get on to the 3rd chord now. The 3rd chord we're going to play now involves pressing down 3 different strings, and this is an A minor chord. We will start with the 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string. You can feel a little sharp under your finger when you first start, those skinny strings like that, and it takes time to build up the calluses. And then you're going to take your 3rd finger and play the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and your 2nd finger is going to be on the 4th string, 2nd fret. This is an A minor, and you're only going to be strumming 5 of the notes. You won't strum the lowest one, you'll strum from 5 up to the 1st. Now you can also think of this, if it helps you remember it, as the same as the first chord, but you go to the next skinnier string. So instead of the 5th and 4th string, you have the 4th and 3rd string, and then you're adding that one note. It might help you kind of get it in your brain better. And again, you can do one note at a time. You can just play that first one, then you can add the other one in, and then finally add the third one in. And you should be doing this with all the chords until you get comfortable with them. Let's take a bird's eye view. Now the next chord is probably the most complicated one to play, but we do it from the A minor chord to make it easier because you only have to move one finger, and that's the C major chord. So we're going to take this A minor chord and we're going to remove our 3rd finger and move it up here to the 5th fret, or excuse me, the 3rd fret of the 5th string. And that makes the C major chord. So that switch is from there. It's easier to learn it that way because you've already got 2/3 of it under your fingers, quite literally. And again, do the trick with one at a time if you have to. And we'll take a bird's eye look at it. Well, my friends, I managed to break my lav mic, and so now I had to hook this thing up. Good thing I had it. Anyway, that C chord, one thing I wanted to note was that I kind of like to remember it like a staircase going up from my first finger, up from there. It's a nice way to remember the chord. Now let's look at the last one, which is a D major chord. With the D major, you're just going to be playing the 4 strings, the 4 high strings, so 4th, 3rd, 2nd, and 1st. You're going to start with your 2nd finger on the 2nd fret of the 1st string, and then you're going to put your 3rd finger on the 2nd fret of the 2nd string, and your 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the 3rd string, and just play the 4 strings, giving you a D major chord. And again, like with all of them, you can just do one at a time. You start with that 2nd finger, add the 3rd finger in, add the 1st finger in, and you have the whole chord until you get used to using them all. And let's take a look at that bird's eye view from your own eyes. And of course, eventually you're going to want to be switching chords. And I have a whole video here on how to switch and learn how to do the switches. There's a little trick to it when you're first learning that is going to help you get over that frustration as well. And so there are a ton of songs that are written with these basic chords. And if you want me to do a video on those songs or some songs that you can play once you've learned these, or any other questions or comments at all, please let me know down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And until next time, guys, keep making great music. Hey friends, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. It makes the whole world better.